this question we are given a rational function and asked to find the domain, the y-intercept, the x-intercept, and the vertical asymptotes. So the domain, remember, that is when the denominator equals 0 is what we throw away. So let's go ahead and just a reminder of that. When you have a fraction and x is in the denominator, we got to set the denominator equal to 0 and throw those away. And luckily for us, it decided to give us our function two ways, not factored and factored. And if you're going to set the denominator equal to 0, it's better to use the factored one. It's a lot easier because we would have to factor it anyway. So we got 4x plus 5 times 4x minus 1 equals 0. Since it's already factored for us and set equal to 0, we just set each part equal to 0. And now solve each one of these. For the one on the left, we subtract 5 on each side. We got 4x equals negative 5. And then we divide each side by 4 to get x is negative 5/4. And the one on the right, same idea. We add 1 to each side. We got 4x equals 1. And then we divide each side by 4. And we get x equals 1/4. Right, so remember what these two values are. These are not in the domain. Everything else is. And if you kind of draw a number line to visualize this, because I know it's been a while since we did that, we've got, just make sure you do the numbers in order. Negative 5/4 is the smaller one, and 1/4. These are not included, but everything else is. We have open circles there, and everything else is scribbled in. And we want to make sure we do this because we got to write the domain in interval notation, and it would be negative infinity going all the way left, all the way up to negative 5/4. We use a parentheses since there is an open circle. It's not included. Union, we jump across the negative 5/4. And we go until we hit 1/4. Another parentheses because it's open. Union, parentheses, 1/4, and then all the way again to infinity. There's nothing else stopping us. All right, so that is the domain. And then number 2, the y-intercept. Oops. Right, the y-intercept, that is the coordinate pair where x is 0. We plug in x equals 0. And we got, it's actually easier to plug in 0 in the one that's not factored, although if you do this one, it's okay too. We got f of 0 equals 3 times 0 minus 2 over 16 times 0 squared plus 16 times 0 minus 5. This is 0, this is 0, this is 0. We got negative 2 over negative 5. The negatives simplified to 2 over 5. Right, so our coordinate for the y-intercept, x is 0 and y is 2/5. Right, part 3, the x-intercepts. That's when we set y equal to 0, and this is better to use the factored version. So we replace our f of x with 0. We plug in y equals 0, it's the opposite thing. Well, we got 0 equals 3x minus 2 over 4x plus 5 times 4x minus 1. Now we've solved things like this before when we have fractions equal 0. And I'll remind you, the easiest thing to do is think about 0 as over 1 and cross multiply. All right, so what's going to happen here, if we cross multiply over here, we're going to get all this stuff times 0 on the left, but that's just 0. 0 times anything is 0. And then we get 1 times 3x minus 2, which is just 3x minus 2. And now we solve this for x. We add the 2 on each side. We've got 3x equals 2. And then we divide each side by 3 there. Sorry, I'm kind of running out of room. But the 3's cancel out, and we got 2 over 3 equals x. Right. And we only got 1, and that's okay. The x value is 2 over 3, and the y value is 0. All right, now the last thing, the new thing, the vertical asymptotes, these are actually the same thing as the numbers where the domain is not included, where the denominator equals 0. We actually did it without saying we did it. Now, even though we could go through and solve this again, there's no reason to really do that, because the vertical asymptotes are when the denominator equals 0 and the numerator does not. Now keep in mind the numerator equals 0 is the x-intercepts, the denominator equals 0 is what we did in part A. And notice there's no overlap there. So the answers for the vertical asymptotes are 1/4 and negative 5/4. Same thing. Now this gives you the x equals part. If you weren't given the x equals part, then you have to actually type x equals 1/4 and x equals negative 5/4.